We've talked about it on the show before. The energy a ring announcer brings to an event is monumental for not only the fans, but the fighters as well. Today, we're talking to the youngest ring announcer in the world, Kody Big Mo Mommaerts. We're going to learn about his story, his background in sports, and how he continues to push himself on his way to becoming the best ring announcer in the world. This is the Gametime Guru. So,
what time is it? Game time!
This is the Gametime Guru podcast, where I interview sports figures from all over the world to help deliver a panoramic view on sports. So whether you're a former athlete, one of the crazies, or simply a casual sports fan, this is the perfect show for you as we peel back the curtains and learn from our guests every single week. I'm your host, Shane Larson, and I'm helping you see sports through a different lens. What's up, everyone? Welcome out to another episode of the Gametime Guru podcast. Amazing opportunities to hear from sports figures, across the globe, worldwide. We get to hear from different people, hear about their stories. They share them with us, and it's awesome. This is an opportunity for me to learn from various individuals in the sports industry, whether they're athletes, former athletes, coaches, fans, players, or ring announcers. And today we get to bring on Kody Big Mo Mommaerts onto the show, the youngest ring announcer in the world. He's going to share his story with us. But first, I got to say, Kody, thanks so much for joining the show, man.
Hey, I appreciate the time, Shane. This is going to be great. I had some time to talk to you a little bit before we got on, and you're an avid sports fan, but you understand all aspects, and that's why I do ring announcing, man. It's for aspects that a lot of people don't recognize. So I'm excited to get talking about this, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely, brother. Absolutely. This is super cool for me, man. A lot of people that are into the sports world, whether it be basketball, football, like the mainstream sports, or even combat sports, they understand that there's additional pieces to it that bring energy to the game, whatever it may be, to the sport of which they compete in. The announcer is one of those. You got fans, but the announcer is so vital to the energy. And I want to get to that point. But first, Kody, let's rewind in time to kind of get your sports background a little bit, because now you're doing ring announcing. We're going to dive really deep into that. But before that, talk to us about that. Did you grow up competing in sports? And if so, like what ones did you enjoy competing in?
I was very heavily involved in sports. It was a massive part of my life. I grew up a very big individual, grew really fast. I'm obviously a big guy now. So my first sports experience, obviously, I was involved with the youth soccer when I was a child and stuff like that. And I was growing so fast that my father was starting to recognize that I was doing a poor job with spatial awareness and balance and that kind of stuff. So he actually got me into martial arts. I did Shotokan karate for about 8 years. Was able to train with some, world-class black belts and senseis and shihans and hanshis. My old training partner is a kid by the name of Cameron Madani. The Madani family owned the dojo that I went to. Cameron was actually getting ready to represent in the Olympics in Tokyo because I believe they added karate to this Olympics, or at least to the next one. He's gone on to win Pan American game medals and that kind of stuff. So I was able to be around fantastic athletes at that dojo. I started also doing team sports, basketball and football specifically. And as I continued to grow, and as I got more invested in the team sports, I just got away from the martial arts aspect, which in hindsight, I do regret a little bit, because I think I could have figured out a way to do both. But regardless, moved on to football and basketball. When I got into high school, I quickly realized I had a chance to play football at the next level. Ended up playing football at the Division I level at the University of Northern Colorado. Played there for 5 years. Sports have been a massive, massive part of my life. The level of competition. I've always been a big fan of the camaraderie behind it, when you have teammates. So yes, sports has been a big part of my life.
Man, I love that. And just for the listeners out here, you might be watching this on the YouTube video here where we got the video, or you might be listening to it on the audio version. But Big Mo right here is the nickname. Now Kody Big Mo Mommaerts.
Yep.
There's a reason he says he's a bigger stature guy. Tell us how big you really are, man, because the Instagram bio tells it, and I'm going to put that here in the bio. But while we're talking, how tall are you, man?
I'm about 6'7", about 200 right now, hovering around 220 pounds. So I'm a big guy. When I was playing football in college, I was about 6'7", 310. So I used to be even bigger than I am now. So
Wow. What position did you play in college, man?
I was an offensive lineman. I played tackle and guard.
Wow. Okay. I wouldn't know. Let's see, like that's cool to see me because there's a little bit of a transformation there post college career.
A
What
little
would you
bit.
what would you say is the biggest lesson you learned in sports, like growing up, especially, you played at a Division I level. What was the biggest lesson you learned in sports through that time?
I mean, it's the work ethic piece and the competitiveness, I think, is the most valuable from sports because it can really transfer to anything that you do. Um, it's one of those things as to where, specifically playing at the college level, or at least striving to play at the college level, it's a rather advanced level of sports. So it takes an advanced level of effort and ability and commitment to it. So I think what it comes down to, the greatest lesson that I learned is being able to really hone in on something, really, I don't know, I'm having trouble putting into words, but really committing to something and giving your maximum effort, regardless of what you're doing. I mean, a lot of the lessons I learned in sports have carried me in what I'm doing in ring announcing. I'm just attacking it at a different pace, at a different level. I mean, me personally, I've said it in other interviews, but I don't like to settle with where I'm at. I'm consistently striving for the next thing. And a lot of that comes from sports, because a thing that's taught in sports is, all right, if you won a game, great, on to the next one. You lost a game, okay, on to the next one. You're consistently moving forward. You're consistently progressing. You're not settling for where you're at. So those are some of the things I learned from sports for sure.
Awesome, man. I love to hear that. I always talk about how, there's parallels, sports and life. And people think some people think it's stupid of me saying that if they don't even understand sports, but the ones who do, they see that and they might say it sounds cliche. That's why I like to ask the guests, for you specifically, what did you learn? Because I've talked about it before too, Kody, like even in team sports, you obviously learn teamwork and competing for something bigger than yourself, that translates into real life.
Mm.
In individual sports, when I was boxing, I mean, you're fighting for yourself at that point, but you also, I love how you just mentioned, like, you win some, you move on, you lose, you move on. A lot of boxers, I always found, even myself, like, you get comfortable when you win, and you're always doing the same thing because you found what works for you. But the crazy
Right.
thing is, you come up against a fighter who has a completely different style, so to speak, and you have to adjust, and you might lose that one. So you have to figure out ways to adjust. It's a constant chess match. Well, in life, it's the same thing. There's mountains, there's valleys, good, bad, whatever, but you constantly have to adjust. Otherwise, if you get comfortable, the next person up is going to find a way to get there eventually. They're going to work hard and eventually get there. So you've got to continuously improve. So I love that you
Exactly.
said that, man.
Exactly.
So,
Amen.
amen. Yes. And this little sermon that we're doing. So we want to talk about this now. This is the big part of where you're currently at. You've got the sports background, even at the Division I level, which I think is phenomenal. That could be a conversation in and of itself for a whole day. I think that's so awesome. And now you got into ring announcing. Can you tell me real quick? Well, you don't have to be real quick. You can just tell me what got you into that. Like, what made you want to be a ring announcer of all things, being a former athlete and everything? Well, what made you want to be a ring announcer?
So I didn't want to be a ring announcer. To be honest, no. It's not that I was actively against it. How it happened was, I have always been very, very comfortable in front of people, speaking specifically. And I was taking public speaking classes in college, doing a really, really good job, being able to present in front of crowds. That started to scale. And I was looking at what I could do after college. And I've always been obsessed with entertainment. I'm the type of person that I like eliciting a reaction from people, watching a reaction from people. It's that kind of that sense of euphoria, almost, of watching someone respond or react to something that you created or that you elicited a reaction for. And so I got really into the entertainment industry, movies, television, etc. And I studied business at the collegiate level, got my undergrad and my MBA while I was at Northern Colorado. And I knew that I wanted to obviously go into business, but I wanted to go into the entertainment side of business, whether it be an agent, a manager, worked for a studio, who knows. And a couple events came up, and I realized that I was had the ability to host, to MC events. I was able to MC a few events, banquets, award shows, galas, even a couple smaller meetings. And I quickly realized I was like, I'm pretty damn good in front of people.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable. I don't need cards. I can memorize things. I know how to improvise if necessary. And so one of my friends said, have you ever thought about doing commentary before? And sports commentary. And no, I had never thought about that. And at the time, I was so burnt out with football and basketball. I played them my whole life. This was after my senior year of college. And I was just so tired of the team sports stuff. Still love them to this day, but I was tired of it. But I was like, you know what? I love combat sports. I was a massive fan of the UFC. I was off and on a fan of the sport of boxing. I've become much more a fan of the sport of boxing. I definitely love boxing. But at the time, I was really a UFC and MMA fan. And I said, I think I could try commentary for combat sports. So I'm the type of person that I'll try anything and I will try to call anyone or talk to anyone. I'll shoot my shot with anything. And my mindset is the worst that someone can say is no. So I had heard about Sparta Sports Entertainment, which is the promotion that I announced for Colorado, because I knew a couple people in the area that fought for them. I'd seen, logos and belts everywhere. So I was like, let me give him a call. So I gave him a call, got a hold of the founder and CEO, Jeff Cisneros. And I said, hey, Jeff, my name is Kody. At the time, I think I was 23, I believe so. I was like 23 years old. I want to get into this. Do you have anything available for the entertainment side, for the media side? And he's like, yeah, we're actually looking for an on-air personality commentator. He's like, why don't you come down and audition, that kind of stuff. And I said, well, can I also audition for the ring announcer? And he's like, sure, but we have a guy. And I was like, all right, cool. So I came down to the studio, auditioned for both. I did pretty well at the commentary side. I knew the sport enough to be able to break it down, to analyze it. I'm obviously not on the same level as some people are, and I definitely wasn't at that time. But what I was really going more for is the energy and the excitement side of things. The entertainment side is really what I focus on. And so did that, audition for the ring announcer, and they said, all right, we'll get back to you. Jeff invites me down to the next show. I get there, and I always dress as if I'm ready to work. So I showed up in a suit and everything, and just to make an impression, he goes, all right, well, it looks like you're ready to work. Do you want to hop on commentary tonight? Keep in mind, I've never commentated a live event literally in my life at this point. And I was just like, yeah, let's ride. Let's roll. And so he had me do the undercard alongside a good friend of mine, JR Gordon, who taught me a lot. Sat down with him and started just breaking down fights. And looking back, it's interesting because I did in my opinion, a terrible job, but that's how I should be feeling. I should be feeling like I've improved a lot. So I did commentary for a while, did a couple shows, and I was doing a good job. And with the excitement side, because that's really what they wanted from me, is they wanted some pop, some color, some entertainment, really, some energy. And I was doing a good job with that. And Jeff knew that I wanted to be the ring announcer, at least take a shot at it. And he said, all right, well, you've been doing a good job. How about you announce the undercard of our next fight? And I was like, let's go. Like, pumped up. I was excited. Show up, and I had to do 4 fights. And at the time, I knew the kind of energy that I wanted to have. I saw what Bruce Buffer was doing. I wanted to take some stuff from him. I wanted to combine different stuff from different ring announcers and kind of craft what I was doing. And I came out way over the top. I mean, I almost lost my voice after 4 fights, because at the time I was very poor at, I was very throaty. I wasn't doing anything from the diaphragm. I didn't know how to build anything. I was going just way over the top with it all. But I did it. And at the time, obviously looking back, I don't think I was very good, but what I was doing was new. And a lot of the crowd hadn't felt that before. The old ring announcer, that just wasn't his style. And so this was kind of new and everything. And I think it made Jeff kind of go, all right, we might be on to something here. This kid might have something. So I got a couple more shows where I could, did some stuff with Airtight Boxing, and then I became the full-fledged announcer, and here we are. And that was I think I've been announcing now for 18 months.
Wow. Okay. So a couple things to unbox.
Yeah, I know that's a long story.
No, and I like that. I love the stories. This is what it's all about, man. So you just keep sharing the stories, because this is what we like. Couple of things. The first thing I want to point out to anybody who's listening is how, you took advantage of opportunities that were presented, like the commentating, for example. It wasn't something that you were familiar with. It wasn't something that you had necessarily done, but you took advantage of that, just as an opportunity to do that. I've been talking to a lot of people lately, especially in the last 2-3 months, about taking advantage of opportunities when they present themselves, especially in your field of work. And one of those for me was play-by-play broadcasting. I've got a little bit of experience doing it, but 2.5 months ago, I was presented with an opportunity to do some play-by-play broadcasting. Like, hey, do you mind come doing one of the JV games for basketball at a local high school? And I'm like, sure, right? Like I was like, it's JV. No one's gonna be watching this thing, whatever. But I went and did it. But because of that one opportunity, and I thought I did terrible too. So I'm relating to your story. I thought I did terrible, but because of that opportunity, I built a relationship with the guy who runs the company, which then presented me with another opportunity, which then got me a payday last week when I did the state championship games. And then I'm doing the state games next week. Will get me another payday. And it goes, and you never know what can come of it if you take advantage of those opportunities and actually just go out there. And sometimes it's outside of your comfort zone, because commentating is a little different than announcing. But it still gets you into the sphere and the networking and the relationship building that you need. And you took advantage of that. So I commend you for that, first off. Secondly, I wanted to do a follow-up question about this ring announcing, because I've always wondered when I'm watching these guys who are in there and you're talking about like yelling from your throat, there's an art to it. It's not just in there just like screaming your head off, because you can lose your voice. So talk to me about, you've learned since then in the last 18 months, probably, like, how to like be more efficient with your speaking and whatnot, and be more powerful and just present. But what do you go through any warm-ups or anything of that nature as an announcer? Like, how do you prepare yourself and your voice and your energy to make sure you're giving it your all without like killing yourself, so to speak?
Fantastic question. I first want to address what you said. First off, 100% right with rolling with an opportunity that presents itself. Congratulations to you. You did the same thing. But I can tell you also from experience that when I got started with doing entertainment stuff, again, like I said, I did not expect to do commentary or ring announcing. If anything, I'd be interested in acting and that type of work. Well, I rolled with the ring announcer stuff. It's opened doors for me to get acting work. I do voice acting work. I've done some on-camera acting work because they've seen that I can be on camera to do commercials and promos as a ring announcer. Clearly, that comfortability can transfer over into acting and that kind of stuff. So again, like you said, regardless of what door opens, I mean, we're on this planet for a while, and a lot of days that we have to live, take a shot at something. It could go horribly. I have no idea, but it also could create something that you didn't know expected before. So 100% right. Roll with the doors that open to you. Be safe. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, don't just jump into something head first. At least look around a little bit and see what you're getting into. But give it a shot. The worst that could happen is that it doesn't work for you and you move on to something else. So 100% agree there. In response to your question about the practicing isn't a huge part of what I do, but I know you brought up warming up. Warming up is I warm up in the car, in the drives to the fights, and I probably look like a crazy person if someone ever looked into my car window. I'm just like screaming at the top of my lungs. But there is a bit of practicing, warming up the vocal cords, warming up enunciation. I've done a little bit of, I've found videos online that are intended for singers to at least practice some things. Something I look to add to the next development of myself as a ring announcer is I do want to start working with like opera training coaches to get an idea of how to get my voice to carry. Because I think, at the current time, I've adapted and evolved a lot with how my voice has been structured, but I know that I still have more to unpack from it. And I know that I can still do more to train it to where I don't have to quite yell as much. I've definitely toned that down and still been able to get the kind of sound and the volume that I want, but I do think I could do more. So yeah, warming up is important and voice maintenance is important, and getting it more from the diaphragm versus the throat is important. So yes, short answer.
I love it though. Okay. So Big Mo, that's the name, right? That's the name you go by. Tell me a little bit about that. Did that come from before when you were playing football as a 300-pound lineman, or is that an announcer, is that shifted into your announcer, your name in announcing, I should say?
No, that's it. 100% came from football. I started being called that in high school. Teammates in college started calling me that as well. So when I was ring announcing and when I got involved in entertainment, everything that I've done in ring announcing has come at something you'll ever find out about me is I'm very OCD in the sense that I love learning and I love organization. And so what I've done is I've done a ton of research on ring announcers, both ones that were from decades ago to ones that are today and everything in between. And what I've done is I've taken a holistic view of it all, and I've seen what's been done right, in my opinion, what's been done wrong. And a lot of what I look for is what is followed by the fans, what elicits a reaction from the fans, what do the various stakeholders in the community like. Really, when you look at the sport of combat, whether it be boxing, whether it be MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing, whatever, you have various stakeholders. And the entertainment side and the ring announcer is one of those stakeholders. He or she is a very important part of the sport in terms of the production, in terms of, building an audience and growing it and everything. And so what I was doing is I was looking at ring announcers and I was saying, okay, this has done well for this individual. This has done well for this individual. This is maybe not as good from this individual. And I started to just build everything upon itself. And I've also looked for opportunities where someone hasn't done something in the past. So something that I was looking at is I was looking at my name. And as much as I love my name, again, it's very difficult to pronounce. I don't want that to happen. I don't want to have someone who's either watching me announce or wants to follow me be hung up on who is he? Is he Kody Mommaert? Simplify it. Cut it out. 2 syllables. Big Mo. It's simple. It's remembered. It's easy. People know who I am when they see me. It's just a lot simpler with everything. And that's really what I've done with everything, whether it be the sunglasses, whether it be, how I dress, how I present myself, how I announce, as I'm trying to find places that I can be remembered. A perfect story. This is one of my favorite stories. Is I got done with a show, and this fan came up to me. She was an older lady, and she goes, "I've been to a lot of fights before, and I love fights, and I think you should take the sunglasses off." And I go, "Okay." And I go, okay. Like, why do you think that? And she goes, well, she listed out 2-3 reasons why she didn't like them. And I go, okay, ma'am. So I knew where she was from. So I knew some of the promotions she had seen. One was a bigger promotion, one was a smaller promotion. And I go, all right, ma'am. I asked what her name was. And I go, what were the names of the ring announcers at those shows that you saw? And she goes, oh, I don't know. And I go, okay, what's my name? And she goes, you're Big Mo or whatever. And I go, exactly my point is that for every reason that you think that I'm, that you don't like about me is also the reason that you remember me. That's the key thing here is I'm very new to this industry. I'm trying to carve out as much market share. That's the business side of me, whether it's market share, followers, fans, who I announce for, whatever. I'm trying to carve out as much as I can for myself. So in that, I need to do things that make people remember me. So sunglasses is one of them, right? So again, everything that I've tried to do is be taking things that have worked for other announcers. How can I shape them a little bit? What can I add to it? Because when you look at it, I don't want to have any negatives in my game. I'm a perfectionist. I'm trying to be the best. When I start something, when I go after something, I want to be the best that ever did it. I shoot for the moon with everything that I do. I don't know how to aim for here. I aim for here. And so with that being said, I don't want to have any negatives in my game. I don't want to have any weaknesses in my game. So I take what's worked for other people and add a little bit of unique flair to it. And if I discover that something isn't working, I'm off it. So,
man, I love that. I love that whole story too. Like, hey, you're remembered for a reason. You remember the name. I think that's awesome. And what's another thing that I appreciate and respect about you is your ability to handle criticism in a way of like, okay, let me hear you out real quick. Okay. And then you provide your your counter to that, if you will. I like that. And in your position, you've got to be, I mean, I guess my question is, do you have to have thick skin? Because you will have to deal with some of those, I'm sure. Is that you're out there, you're in the public sphere, so people get to see you and they can criticize. I mean, I'm probably guilty of it myself when I'm listening to announcers that I think have no energy, and I'll say something like, "Oh my gosh, dude," or "So-and-so is doing this fight," or something. I'm just naturally like that as a fan. So I'm sure there's others out there. How do you handle that?
So no, you're 100% right. And what a lot of people don't realize about ring announcers specifically, is the ring announcer is actually the most prominent individual on camera for a fight promotion. So when you think about it, and I've talked to this with people before, because I am obsessed with the entertainment side of combat sports. I have studied it. I have analyzed who's been great at it from a fighter level, from a commentator level, announcer level. I mean, the UFC is doing these promos and sinking all these dollars into marketing because it works. The energy and excitement behind fighting is so uniquely different than any other sport because of the violence of the sport and the fact that it's one-on-one. There are very few one-on-one sports. There are very few sports where it's an entire crowd of people watching two individuals. It's very, very rare. So with that being said, with the ring announcer, when you look at a fight, there's 4 people in a ring. There's 2 fighters at a time, 1 referee, and then at the beginning and the end, there's an announcer. But here's what people don't realize. The announcer is the most consistent person on camera during a fight promotion. Obviously, the fighters are only there for their fight and maybe an interview, maybe a pre-fight promo, and the referees alternate. So the ring announcer is the only individual that is consistently there the entire time. So with that being said, the real skill of a ring announcer isn't announcing names. It isn't, reading anything out or reading who the winner was. And you said this in your interview with Bruce. I was watching it and listening to it. And you were 100% right. The ring announcer has to carry an event. The ring announcer has to establish authority. This is the same true with any type of public speaking. Establish authority and know how to carry the level of excitement of an event. A ring announcer has their finger on the entire audience, and what they say, how they say it can completely affect and change reactions. And, do you pause before reading a split decision? Does that build suspense? How do you announce the co-main event to build for the main event? How do you announce the very first fight? How do you introduce the event? All this stuff plays into it. So with that being said, with how visible a ring announcer is, it is not uncommon for people to like and to very dislike. And I mean, it is, it's so crazy. And the sunglasses is going to be my example with this, because upon visual, I think I have a few things that set me apart visually from other individuals, the other ring announcers, but the sunglasses is one that's very noticeable. There are some people that hate it. I mean, that just hate it. Unbelievable. Like it's like it completely, but at the same time, in my opinion, I have found way more people that love it. I've been able to build a social media following pretty quickly that I'm growing on a daily basis. It's just the sunglasses are just something unique. And the thing is that what people don't realize is you never know what's going to be the thing that people love about you or people remember about you, even if it's hated in the beginning. I mean, for example, again, Bruce Buffer is the example. Bruce Buffer was really one of the first ring announcers to really come out with this exciting, just booming level of entertainment. For a long time, ring announcers were more classic. They were more smooth. It was more conversational. It was more talking. Bruce was the first one to really just let it rip. It's the same thing. I guarantee you he got flack from people that were old school fight fans that didn't like that. But that's now his thing. So you never know what's going to be your thing. And the sunglasses for me, and again, it's the same thing. In the beginning, it was hated by people. Why are you wearing sunglasses? Take the sunglasses off. Now, getting ready to make merchandise. People love wearing the sunglasses. People at the shows wear their sunglasses. It's something I'm remembered for. So again, it's about, every day you just got to pound the stone, because you never know when something's going to catch on, and the sunglasses aren't going anywhere. I mean, unless some promotion down the road wants me to take them off, whatever. But right now it's working. Sparta loves them. We were me and Jeff at Sparta. We did joke commercials back and forth about the sunglasses. It's now a marketing thing. I mean, it's awesome. You never know what's going to work for you.
Man, this is the stuff I geek out about, man. Like, right? I love it. I have an immense amount of respect for people like you. This is what I'm talking about. Listeners out there, pay attention. This is, you can set yourself out, like, be true to yourself, be unique, and be okay with that. Like, that's all right. I can relate in so many aspects, man. 4 years ago when I started the show, I mean, I graduated college when I was 28. So I was a little older when I got my bachelor's degree. I took the whole, go part-time, work full-time, that whole shebang. And when I finally started my show is when I was graduating from college. And so many people, you had the first wave of people oh, that's cool, he's got a podcast. I'm like, no, I'm doing something more with it. It's not just another podcast. I'm actually building this out. I really want to take this to the next level. About a year into it, 2 years into it, you lose followers because well, Shane's really not going to do anything with that. Not going to do anything with that. Flash forward another 2 years. We're 4 years down the road right now. And I'm like, okay, I've got merchandise. I've got a brand that's been built. I've been downloaded in 88 different countries, over 62,000 times. It's been heard. Like,
Wow.
that's the kind of thing, and we're pulling on guests like yourself, like hearing people's stories. And I sit back there and I think, yeah, if I would have just stopped because people hated on it, like, oh, GTG, that's not very catchy. Now it's like people will be like, yo, GTG. They'll see me at a basketball game locally here. They'll be like, Gametime Guru. I'm doing my broadcasting the other night, and they're calling me the Gametime Guru because I've got my shirt on, and they're like, yo, GTG, Guru's in the house. Like, just little things like that. You sit back and think, okay, had I quit because people didn't like it and I wasn't true to myself and what I believed in my vision, then I wouldn't be here. Same thing with what you're saying there with the sunglasses inside, which, by the way, you said the merch is coming, so you don't have that shirt available yet?
No, I'm getting ready to make some merchandise.
Oh, dude,
a ring announcer selling merch, man. Who would have? I talked to my followers, and they're like, "We would love a shirt," like blah blah blah. So,
I'm buying a shirt. So you let us know so I can.
I got you,
man. I got to get a shirt from you, man. So you let us know the link when it's ready, and I'll shoot it out too, because I'll be buying one from you. Because that's so. Before you even told the story, you jumped on here. I'm like, this is great, and I'm glad that you even got into the discussion about it, because I saw the shirt side. I'm like, this is awesome. And I love that you referenced, Bruce Buffer's like where he's at now. Obviously, he's at the top of the line when it comes to ring announcing. Him alongside his half brother Michael. I mean, they're two iconic figures in ring announcing, and Bruce was unique, very very unique in what he did. What's also interesting is you've got your side to you that's like similar in that regard, because ring announcers are entertainers, they're entrepreneurs. It's just kind of like this whole like thing, because that's how Bruce is too. So it just makes me smile. Okay. So I got to ask you this question. You're announcing, you get in there. Have you ever had tough names to announce? And has there ever been any slip ups, or how do you go about, like, when you have a tough name to read, what do you ever panic, or how do you go about making sure that you don't screw up the name? Because I just had an experience where I screwed up a name for an entire first quarter of a basketball game before I realized that I needed to correct that, which was super embarrassing. And I made sure I corrected myself like 5 million times, apologizing the other night about it. But how do you go about doing those tough names? Because in fighting, they come from all walks of life, man. So they're from different countries, different areas, and some of those names are hard to pronounce.
So great question. First, yes, I have. I believe I actually track this because I'm a perfectionist. I've made 2 mistakes with names in my life. In terms of fumbling over a name live, I don't believe mispronouncing a name is a mistake if you don't make it seem like a mistake. This is a point of public speaking that a lot of people don't realize, is that when a crowd is watching you, a lot of the times they don't know what's right or wrong. They're looking for, they more resonate with energy more so than what you're saying, right? So, for example, I made one mistake once where I introduced this person, and their vowel, I did the long sound of the vowel when I should have done the short sound of the vowel. But I delivered the name the same. Crowd still got energized. Fighter still got energized. I apologized to him at the next card when he told me how his name should have been pronounced, because I realized that the last one I did it wrong. So I'm glad that I've made very few mistakes, but something that's been a benefit for me is I've always really enjoyed language, and I've always paid attention to how certain names and certain parts of names are said, regardless from origin of the name and that kind of stuff. For example, I can pronounce Spanish names pretty well. I can roll my R's. I've gotten props for that on my social media. I can roll my R's. I know how to pronounce vowels differently if it's an Eastern European name. That stuff's always just came very easy to me. I don't know why. I don't know if there was something in my childhood that made me pay attention to it, but I've always been able to pronounce names very well. But ultimately, if for some reason I've ever found myself in a ring and I looked at the name before I said, and I go, wait, how do I say this again? It's rare that it's happened, but I've gotten there. I'd say, pronounce it how you think it's pronounced, and just deliver it as if it was perfect. And if you mispronounce a vowel, it's okay. Don't make the mistake next time. But in the case that you make a mistake, it's okay. Still deliver it, still get the crowd reaction from it, and keep rolling.
I love that, man. Super cool. Good information too for people who are perfectionists, and you're worried. Just go out there, and it's the energy behind it. And the reason I even bring that up is fight fans around the world kind of understand. I don't think the fighters truly care as long as your energy's good and as long as you don't completely butcher the name. And most of them understand too, like especially if they're coming from a different origin, they understand that it's going to be pronounced in like 5 million different ways depending on the person who's saying it. I lived in Brazil for 2 years, and when I was there, there's always that like they pronounce their J's differently than Spanish does. Like
Right.
J in Spanish is like an H, whereas in Brazil it's like João, like it's saying John, it's João instead of with the H. And then there's a couple different things like Juan versus Joao. Like it's just weird. But and the R's and everything is different. So it's a skill set I don't think people realize you have to have as a ring announcer. Like you've got to do your best to understand these differences, and you go the extra mile of trying to at least you understand languages, you kind of understand the majority of it, and you roll your R's and the cool things like that. And I think that has an impact on it. You don't have to be perfect, but it does have an impact. There's a lot that goes into it than just jumping into the ring and screaming out people's names. There's a lot that goes into all of that. I do have a question for you too, man. Do you have any taglines? Bruce Buffer always says it's time. And we talked about that on the show about why he says it's time. Then there's Michael Buffer, his half brother. Let's get ready to rumble. There's a lot of guys. Who is it? Is it Mergliotta? I can't remember who the other announcer is in the UFC. I might have butchered his name.
Joe Martinez.
Martinez. There we go. And I think he says, fight fans, are you ready? It's like yeah. Do you have a tagline or anything of that nature that you kind of use?
I do. I have two that I'm kind of working with. I like to open the shows with "Can you hear me?" and then I go, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" And I help. I mean, that builds everything. That gets people comfortable with getting loud and excited. Again, this comes back to public speaking. I love public speaking. Very first thing that I try to do as soon as the show starts is at least set the table for the kind of energy that we want. Right. This is the kind of energy that I want. This isn't a ballroom. This is an arena. This is a fight. I want everyone excited. I want everyone drinking. I want everyone going crazy. So I do that to typically open the shows. And then for main events, it's more drawn out. I'm trying to figure out ways to chop it down. But the tagline itself is "Get Wild" or "Let's Get Wild." Again, build that same kind of energy, build that same kind of excitement. I'm always talking about fans drinking, getting out of their seats, that type of thing. It's all about knowing who the audience is. And with fights, I know who the audience is for the most part. So it's about knowing who your audience is and knowing how you can say certain things to elicit the reaction that you want.
So cool, man. So awesome. And I apologize. I butchered. See, I mentioned the referee, Dan Mergliotta, compared to John Martinez, the announcer. See, I was getting them all flip-flop. That's my apologies there. But dude, you know the names of these guys. You've studied these announcers. Can you tell me your top 3 ring announcers that you kind of you feel are at the top of their game that you've taken some tips and tricks from?
Most certainly. I mean, in my opinion, the top 2, in my opinion, are the Buffer brothers. I think that they are phenomenal at what they do. I also do want to point out that announcing MMA and boxing is different. It is a different style of event in terms of how it's built, how it's build and built. BILED, how the fight is built, and then BUILT, how it's built. But it's a very different style of announcing. So Michael is phenomenal in boxing, and then Bruce is phenomenal in MMA. I do think that both of them could flip-flop and still do a fantastic job. So those, in my opinion, are the top 2. But then you have other people across the world that are fantastic in various aspects. I mean, David Diamante in boxing is great. Jimmy Lennon Jr. in boxing is fantastic. So you have a lot of people that are unique in their own regard, and I think are very, very solid at their job. So, yeah, that's the Buffers are, in my opinion, the top 2.
Absolutely. I think, they've done their work. They didn't just show up there. They definitely have been working and made their mark. But yeah, there's other ones out there too. And hey, give it a couple of years and your name's going to be right there. It's already gaining the steam. Sunglasses inside. We already know who you are, Big Mo. So let's keep that rolling.
100%.
One thing I've talked to announcers about too, and even other fighters, when I brought fighters onto the show, we've talked about this before. You are the most consistent person in that sphere, on TV, on camera, in the arena, because you're there every single fight. You're announcing every fight. You're announcing the post fight. You're giving the results. but the fighters sometimes have a personal, they feel that connection to the announcer as well. Bruce Buffer talks about it too, like because he's allowed to, he gets, like you were mentioning, he's like into it, very exciting. He gives them fist bumps. Some of the fighters really like to, they love the announcing, so they jump in there with him, and he's doing a 360 spin. For those who don't know, Bruce Buffer actually blew his knee out. I think it was George St. Pierre's fight. He did a 360, blew his knee out, tore his ACL on that once. It's a really funny story. But anyways, he gets into it, he jumps, he gives fist bumps and so forth. And some fighters really have a personal connection. Do you have any experiences like that where you have a personal connection with some of the fighters at the local levels?
I do. Most certainly, for a few reasons. So first and foremost, I always go into the locker room before the fights. I don't talk to every fighter. I talk to the ones that I might need to double check their name, or the information I get might have been missing, where they're from and that kind of stuff. But I'm very respectful of fighters. That is something that I got called out for once. Someone on social media said that I wear sunglasses and that's disrespectful to fighters. Very much disagree. I can tell you that I am incredibly respectful of what these fighters do. In my opinion, combat sports is the hardest sport on the planet. I have an athletic background. I understand what the fighters are going through. I've trained with fighters in the past. I'm going to be, hopefully I want to get into fight training for no other reason than cardio. I'm not sure if I'll ever step into the ring, but I have a deep respect for what these fighters are doing. They are doing something that very few people on this planet could do. And so I always talk to the fighters. I have a great connection with the fighters because, in my opinion, I do understand at some capacity what they're going through because I've done it. I've never done a fight camp, but I've done fall camp for college football. So I do understand the parallels between my experiences and what they're going through. And so I am always talking to the fighters. I'm always in there talking to them while they're warming up and, dapping them up and seeing how things are going. And I always have fighters that are messaging me before the fights because I do a ton of promotion, and I'm always tagging the fighters that are going to be fighting in the upcoming fights. And then I always share clips and footage, and I'm always tagging the fighters, and I get a conversation going. And I'm very, in my opinion, I'm a lot more interactive in the community than other announcers are because of my presence on social media. I use social media probably more than most announcers do, in the sense of I'm actually commenting and I'm engaging with posts on other, on other pages, and I'm getting into conversations with people, never with the intention of argument or fighting. And I usually try to stay out of that. But the source of what I talk about is either talking about respect for the fighters or the entertainment side of the sport, because of those two things that I take a lot of pride in. So I am deeply involved with the community, and I have great relationships with the fighters on various levels. So
that is awesome, man. And I'm sure the fighters appreciate that, man. They appreciate that you actually care about what they're doing, because then they feel that you're not just out there announcing, you actually, them. And I feel the same way about like play-by-play broadcasting when I'm doing that too. And anybody I'm listening to doing it, I'm like, if you know a little bit about the players that you're talking about, right? Like the people at home can hear that. They sense that. The players, when they rewatch the film, they sense that. They're like, okay, they know a little bit about us. They care enough to know a little bit about us. You know what I mean?
Right.
They've done the research. I commend you for that as well. Man, there's just so many things I wanted to pick your brain. I know I'm running out of time here with you, man. I just wanted to ask you a few more questions if you don't mind.
Take your time, man. Take your time.
Dude, I'm like geeking out about this. So currently, you're announcing fights at a localer level, like a smaller promotions, so to speak, quote unquote, smaller promotions. But I want to hear, they're not like, people don't understand this. I don't think they look at the UFC and they're like, oh, well, they got like 40,000 fans, 50,000 fans. But usually, like, even when you go to local events, like myself, here in Idaho, we have Front Street Fights, which is a local promotion. And we get, 3,500 to 5,000 fans sometimes at that. And I love it. It's in downtown Boise. Very nice little compact arena that we go into, and it's loud. It's exciting. It's just exciting. But people that don't go to the fights, they just see it on TV. They're like, oh, that's nothing. That's not exciting. I disagree. I think it's just as exciting there. I mean, it's not the same type of fighters, but it's awesome. I love combat sports. I love the energy around it. I'm curious though, for you, like, what's the biggest event you've done, and what's your favorite arena to, even at the quote unquote smaller promotions? Like, what's your favorite arena to announce in so far?
So, few things. You're 100% right with what you said. Fight promotions, all fight promotions can get a big fighter. It's not, a lot of people look at it as similar to other sports where there's the NFL and then there's everything below it. That's not how fight promotions work, right? And I actually was having this conversation because Michael Chandler went from Bellator to the UFC. And he was getting a ton of flack from UFC fans saying he doesn't belong here. They're already putting him in the title contention. This is before he fought. And I go, time out, hold. That's not how fight promotions work. He just signed a deal with Bellator instead of the UFC. That's the only difference, right? And so he transferred to the UFC and he won his fight and knocked out Dan Hooker in the first round. So the point is that there's great fighters everywhere. Now, yes, I believe that there are the top, promotions, and then there are ones that are underneath it. But the notion that somehow it's an inferior, I disagree with that. But biggest fight I've ever announced, I was able to announce, this is a crazy story. So we've been hosting our events since July. We took a hiatus because of COVID, but we hosted events in Wyoming. And the commissioner of Wyoming Combat Sports is a guy named Brian Pedersen, and he's very innovative, and he is a risk taker, and he wants to do crazy stuff. And so he and I obviously have a great relationship because we attack things the same way. Same with Jeff Sparta. And so he wanted to start hosting more and more bare knuckle events. So we hosted the first ever bare knuckle MMA fight in history. That was a big fight for me to announce. And then we actually hosted the first ever Lethwei fight on American soil, which was also a big fight for me to announce. And then that fight did so well, and we did a lot for the sport of Lethwei, that Dave LeDuc, who's the world champion of Lethwei, saw it, found it, bought the pay-per-view, and watched it. So much so that he's always wanted to fight in America, but there were no states that were legalizing Lethwei or allowing it. Wyoming did. And we hosted the world championship for Lethwei between Dave LeDuc and the rematch with Cyrus Washington. We hosted that back in November. So that is probably the biggest fight that I've did. The entire, damn near the whole country of me and Mar tuned in. I think we had like 1 million people view it on Facebook Live, and it's getting a lot of views on YouTube. But because they're so invested in that sport on that side of the world, whether it be areas like Thailand or Myanmar or countries like that. And so that, in terms of scale, was the biggest fight that I've done for sure. Favorite arenas, I mean, the bigger the better for me. I'm the type of person that I want the biggest stages possible. So Budweiser Event Center has been one that I've loved to announce at the past. But me, I'm the type of person where it's not going to change my game. I'm going to deliver how I'm going to deliver, regardless if you put me in a closet or if you put me in, an Olympic stadium. It doesn't change anything for me. So I'm always trying to elevate where I'm announcing and the size and to which I'm announcing. But Budweiser Event Center is probably my favorite that I've been able to announce at so far.
Gosh, man, you've had some cool opportunities. The sport of Lethwei, just as an FYI, what a coincidence. I was just talking 2 weeks ago. A friend of mine in Canada was talking to me. He's a work friend of mine. And he was talking to me about Lethwei and how he's a huge fan of combat sports as well, but he's giving me the whole rundown of the history of it. I'm like, man, I need to have somebody on my show. And he's talking about LeDuc, and he's talking about everything here. And I'm like, I found myself going down a rabbit hole that day. This is like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I'm in the middle of work and I'm watching YouTube videos, caught myself in a rabbit hole of just like studying Lethwei. So it's crazy. I actually saw that fight. I was looking at that. So that's so weird. When you said that, I'm like, hold up. Okay, hold on. Like, now I'm going back, and this is crazy. Like, just odd coincidence that this happened. But yeah, that was what stemmed that whole thing. So I need to actually get some fighters that do the Lethwei fights.
It's crazy,
on the
man.
Show.
It's a different. That's the amazing thing about combat sports is they're all very different. Muay Thai is very different than kickboxing. Kickboxing is very different than boxing. Boxing is very different than Lethwei. But again, this is the beautiful thing about combat sports is, even though there's differences between the sport, the energy and the entertainment is still there. I announced a Lethwei fight. Okay. No one in America, for the most part, knew what Lethwei was. We were the first ever Lethwei in North America. But you know what they do respond to? They respond to energy. They respond to violence. They respond to incredible athletes doing what they do. So it doesn't, like I said, you make up a sport and I'll announce it. I don't give a damn. Like, people respond to what they respond to. So it's amazing. I've definitely had some incredible opportunities very quickly in my career, which is, in my opinion, a credit to, the quality of the work that I do. To be honest with you, that's the level of confidence that I have. And I know that if I haven't been doing the job that I have been, I wouldn't be getting these opportunities. So I'm both very thankful, and I'm excited for even more. So
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. A lot of awesome opportunities. You said it's been within 18 months, right? That you've really
yeah.
started diving in. That's relatively quick in the grand scheme of things. That's awesome. It does
Yeah.
speak to the quality of work that you bring. And you talk about these opportunities. My last question for you, for Kody Big Mo Mommaerts, right? Big Mo, what do we expect to see from you in the next 18 months?
I have the level of confidence that I'm going to sit here and say that I think I can be the biggest ring announcer in the world. I really do. That is the kind of confidence that I carry myself. Everything that I do in ring announcing is designed to support growing the sport itself. And the only way that that can be done is by bringing in new fans. In my opinion, when it comes to growing the sport, the two most important stakeholders are the fighters and the fans. The fighters, because if it wasn't for the fighters, the sport wouldn't happen. But because of the fans, if it wasn't for the fans, the sport wouldn't grow. So the reality is that when you look at combat sports over the last decade, the reason why it's grown in popularity is because organizations and promotions have been doing a very good job at bringing new fans in, specifically with MMA and the UFC, right? And other MMA promotions as well, but obviously the UFC has been the industry leader. So, in my opinion, the value add that I present is me being a younger demographic. As I was a fan of combat sports, specifically in college, I was the only real fan of combat sports in my friend group and on my team for that matter. And what I was noticing is I couldn't understand how combat sports wasn't more popular. I was sitting around my teammates, I was putting fights on, and I was going, I don't get it. When I put a fight on, everyone's watching it. They all love it. They all can resonate with the amount of violence and the excitement and the build of everything. They understand this is a fight, that it's going to be exciting. And regardless, when I'd put a fight on, they would always watch it. So I'm sitting here going, why isn't this more popular? I'm not sitting here saying that I think combat sports will ever topple football. I don't think it ever will. But I'm sitting here going, how is this not bigger? How is this not one of the top viewed sports for 20 to 35-year-olds? We love drinking. We love partying. We love excitement. We love showboating. We love violence. How is this not more popular? And so that's something that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get as many more eyeballs onto the sport as possible. I think that there have been phenomenal people in the industry that have done a great job of helping build the sport and help bring in new fans, help get more eyeballs onto the sport, because that helps everyone. That helps the fighters, that helps the announcers, that helps the promotions, that helps everything. So when I attack something, I immediately jump to the biggest goal possible. I said that before. And so, in my opinion, with what I'm doing and how I'm engaging with the community, I do believe I can be the best announcer in the world. I really do. And I believe I can be on the biggest stage as possible. And I'm going to attack every single day as if I'm doing that. No discredit to other announcers. I think everyone is fantastic. Everyone is unique in their own space. I'm going to be unique in mine. And in my opinion, a freight train is coming, and I'm coming. And I think that I can be the best. And I think that I can get as many fans as possible to love what I do and to feel the excitement and the energy that I want them to feel. I want the fighters to understand that as well when I'm in there. And I'm just going to keep rolling with what I'm doing, man. I think that I'm starting to carve out a space in the market for myself. And it's exciting, but I'm going to keep rolling with what I'm doing, man. And like I say, call it overconfidence. That's fine. I believe I can be the best in the world, and I plan on attacking every single day as if I'm going to be.
That's what I like to hear, man. Yeah, I can already see the book. You're going to be writing a book. Youngest, biggest stature, best. Youngest, biggest, best, and that's going to be your book, and it'll be out in about 12 to 18 months. Already written for us all. I can't wait for it, man. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. Kody Big Mo Mommaerts joining us today. Hey, when we wrap it up, I want to know, where can we find you? Like, where can we find more about you? Where can we follow you? Do you got a website, social media outlets, and so forth, so we can put them in the description here?
Fantastic. First off, Shane, thank you, man. I love talking to people that are not only fans of the sport, but they also work in sports in general, because you have a different standpoint and a different understanding of things. So I appreciate your time getting on. You do a ton of research. You're very educated on everything. You understand things from different viewpoints. And I also want to thank those that are listening to this. Whether you're listening to it the day it's posted or whether you're listening to it 10 years from now. I appreciate it. The fans of sports, you all are really what drive it all. I mean, you guys are the consumers. You buy the tickets, you buy the pay-per-views, buy the merchandise, follow the fighters, travel for events. You guys are fantastic, and I believe that the fight fan community is by far. I mean, not by far. Other sports fans are great, but fight fans, man, it's something different that I almost can't explain. The depth of how much you guys love the sport is amazing. Whether it's a fighter from a country that you're from or someone on the opposite side of the world, it doesn't change anything. It crosses borders. It's universal. Even if you don't speak the language, it's amazing. So for the fans that have followed me and supported me, thank you. For those that are watching this, thank you. I hope that even if you don't like me yet, or even if you do like me, that I continue to entertain you. And if for some reason you're not a fan of me now, I hope and pray that I can make you a fan one day. Again, whether it's tomorrow or 10 years from now, one day I hope that you understand what I'm trying to do and you get on board with it, because I think it's going to be amazing. But for those of you that do want to follow me, you can find me on Instagram at big.mo.on.the.mic. So Big Mo on the mic, all separated by periods. You can find me at Twitter, on Twitter at Big Mo on the mic, no periods. You can visit my website at www.thisisbigmo.com. I do post some content on there, whether it be ring announcing or some of the acting stuff that I do. But once again, guys, for those of you listening, thank you so much. You all are what make my job fun, and you guys have made a job available for me. So thank you so much.
Baller, man. We're going to put the links in the description here so you guys saw it. His Instagram handle is a little bit tougher at first just to hear it, but we'll put it in here and link it there so everybody can check that out. Big Mo on the mic, baby. Let's go. So once again, Kody Big Mo Mommaerts joining the show. We appreciate you, man. And for all the listeners out there, we appreciate your support so far. If you haven't done so already, if you're new to the show, this is your first time listening because you know Big Mo, awesome. Welcome aboard. Please hit the subscribe button and share it with your friends and family so they can hear it too and learn from Big Mo himself. So once again, we'll be coming to you guys next week with another interview, and we just appreciate your time. And Kody, we'll chat with you next time, man.
Hey, man, I hope to have you and all these listeners ringside one night.
Heck yes, sir. Can't wait. Guys, thanks so much for listening to another episode of my show. Now, if you could go and do me a favor, head over to iTunes, give me 5 stars, and leave me a review, it would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support.